Hey guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. Today I'm going to be getting into my July wrap up. I have 15 books to tell you all about. But before we get into it, I do want to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Xnara. Xnara is a personalized supplement service, and it's more about complements rather than supplements. That's what they say, because they really take into consideration you, your health needs, and your lifestyle before they give you your little box of perfect complements. So in my box, I have probiotics and nutrition supplements. As you can see, they are all right here. I have been taking them all week, and I think I've been pretty open about my health issues online. I have a lot of chronic pain from PCOS, and I recently have been introduced to an endometriosis diagnosis. So there's a lot to figure out, and Xnara is just one of the ways that I am trying to help manage my health. However, even if you don't have any major medical issues or health concerns going on, Xnara is just a great complement to a health routine if you like wellness. How they do it is they personalize everything based on your health assessment. They look at your microbiome and things like that. You fill out all your details about food habits, sleep, activity, daily health, things like that. And they analyze your data with AI technology to come up with the perfect wellness routine for you. It's literally designed to fit your body's needs. They also have a gut microbiome DNA test if you're interested in that as well. And you can choose to take both tests or just anyone along with your free nutritional assessment. They really believe that every person is unique, so we each deserve our own complementary wellness routine rather than supplementing with things that you don't need. And as my very smart nutrition professor at UT pointed out, that you're just going to pee out. So if you're interested in trying out some compliments from Xnara, please check out my link down below. Get a little discount with my code and my link. And thank you so much to Xnara for sponsoring today's wrap up. Now let's go ahead and get into all the books that I read in July, starting with my stats. Y'all know I always do my stats first, so let's hop over to Storygraph. As I said, I read 15 books this month for a total of 4,365 pages with my pretty standard mood breakdown, tense, dark, and mysterious, although I did have a little extra emotional in there, which I don't usually have. As for pacing, 8 of the books that I read were medium paced, and that was the majority, and then I did have 3 fast-paced and 2 slow-paced books thrown in. As far as page number, I read 6 books that were under 300 pages, and the rest of the 9 were all above 300 pages, but below 500. Y'all know I am not a long book girly. And I read all fiction books this month. Here is my genre breakdown. I mostly read thrillers and horrors with some YA and romance and contemporary thrown in there. My average rating this month was a 3.8 across all of my 15 reviews. And my reviews were literally all over the place. Wait until you hear this. Okay, I had a 1 star, a 2 star, a 2.5 star, 2 3 stars, a 3.5 star, 2 4 stars, 2 4.5 stars, and 5 5-star books, fortunately. And this is the breakdown of how I read those pages throughout the month of July. I had a huge burst of reading at the beginning of the month when I was finally out of my slump that I've been in for months. I was just on a roll. I read so much. And then towards the end of the month, I was traveling, so I didn't read as much. But that is the statistical tea. So now let's just go ahead and get into the book reviews, starting out as always with my least favorite book and working our way up to my most favorite book of the month. So obviously we're going to start out in a 1-star territory. The 1-star book that I read in July, you guys all know about because I already posted a vlog where I was reading it, and that was Hide by Kirsten White. And I'm not going to sit here and rant for 10 minutes about this book like I did in the vlog. If you want to watch that whole thing, I will link my vlog that I did reading carnival horror and thriller books up above and down below. But Basically,
I hated every single thing about this book.
I feel like this book was partially a victim of incorrect marketing, but besides that, I do not think it was written well either. So there's that. The synopsis makes the book sound really fun and really exciting. It's about this high stakes hide and seek competition with all of these people that takes place in a derelict amusement park, and they're each competing to not get found by the seeker who is trying to find them in their hiding places, and the person who hides for the longest and is the most successful hide and seek player wins this huge cash prize. And of course, they're going to get picked off along the way. It is a murder mystery, and we're also trying to figure out, like, what is this game, who created it, why does it exist, etc., etc. When I first started reading, I was okay, and then there started being more and more and more and more characters introduced, and my little tiny pea brain could not keep up with it. I don't know who could keep 14 not very unique characters straight in their mind, especially when the author made the conscious decision to give 2 of them the same name.
Like, you already have 14 characters. Why would you make it more confusing?
And the chapters in this book were so long. It was literally painful to get through. I'm sorry, if there is a murder mystery where, like, people are getting picked off every other chapter, I'm gonna need it to be a little bit fast-paced. And I'm also gonna need some of that murder and gore, since this is marketed as an adult horror book, to happen on page. But unfortunately, everything happened off page, so it's like the fun slasher horror movie vibes were not even there. And then I don't even want to talk about the ending. It was absolutely horrific, and not in the fun way. Horrific as in, like, I could barely get through it without rolling my eyes into oblivion. If you want to hear full thoughts, watch the blog, because I'm literally done talking about this. Next up, we have the 2-star book that I read in July, which is so disappointing for me, because I thought this was going to be another favorite, one of my favorite books of the year, but unfortunately it just did not work out for me, and that is Broken Dolls by my friend McKay Watson. Y'all know I loved McKay's first book, Them. It is back there on my shelves displayed proudly. However, Broken Dolls did not hit the same for me as Them, and it really disappointed me, because I thought I was gonna love this one. Y'all know I love home invasion horror, and that's exactly what Broken Dolls is. It follows a single mother and her daughter as they are trying to deal with this home invasion scenario. And here's the thing, I love extreme horror. Y'all know this about me. I have read a ton of it. But if you look at the extreme horror books that I've rated highly, they're very commentary heavy. There's a lot of meaning behind them, like in Them. Just my personal taste, I don't like things that could read as just torture and debasement for the sake of that. I don't really enjoy reading that. I can stomach it and get through it in a book where it's for the greater good, like for this message and for this meaning. I think that's why I read extreme horror, because it feels like you have to work for this greater meaning, which is very similar to, like, my personal journey, not to get too personal, but like thinking about going through trauma. You have to go through this horrible thing, but then there's this meaning and healing and growth on the other side of it. At least that's my experience with my personal trauma journey. But just going through the trauma for the trauma of it with nothing at the other end of the rainbow, so to speak, I do not like. So I feel like Broken Dolls just wasn't very suited to my taste, because it was horrifying and it was gory and the writing was impeccable. If you like really graphic descriptions of gore, you're going to like this book. But for me, it just did not hit in the way that I wanted it to. I needed some character development, some depth, something to justify the horrifying things that I was reading, because I didn't really get anything from it other than a feeling of being sick to my stomach, which I'm sure McKay would also argue is the point of the book, and that is totally fine and totally valid, but it's just not my taste in extreme horror books. And I'm coming around to discovering a lot more specifics about my extreme horror taste. Unfortunately, this just, it didn't match up, and I'm not gonna sit here and harp on it and do a whole rant review because I really respect McKay as an author. Obviously, he wrote Them, which is one of my favorite books of the year. Those are my thoughts. I'm very, very disappointed. But y'all, now you know, I'm not just gonna rave about a book because it's written by somebody that I know. I will always 100% give you the most transparent literary opinions that I have. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything, and you can't buy a good review from me, that's for sure, because I was very happy to receive this early copy, this arc, but yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it just because of that. So moving on. The 2.5 star book, right down the middle, just perfectly average, that I read in July was Never Coming Home by Kate Williams. And this is a YA thriller about a group of influencers who are taken to this private island for this whole luxury experience. But they end up, of course, getting abandoned, trapped on the island, isolated, and picked off one by one by one. So we're trying to figure out who is behind it and why. And once all of the influencers get to the island, we have their secrets revealed. We understand that they're there because of this very specific reason. They all have a secret. So that was the fun part of this book, was trying to unravel every single person's secret and what they did to end up on the island. And it was also really fast paced, light, just easy to read. Those are the things that I liked about it. But at the end of the day, I predicted the killer from chapter 2. It was very predictable, not a lot of substance, not a lot of meaning, not great character development. And those are the things, again, that I really, really look for in a favorite book that I'm going to rave about. So that just wasn't there here, but I did have a fun time reading. Next up, I have my 3-star books, so just a little bit better than average. And first we have The Other Mistress by Shanora Williams. I featured this one in my new release thriller vlog that came out in July. I will link it above and below, again, if you missed it. But this book follows a woman who found out that her husband has been cheating on her with not one, but 2 women. That's right, he has a mistress and then he has the other mistress, and she is formulating a plan to take everyone in the whole situation down. This book is very easy to read. Again, fast-paced, bougie rich people drama, scandalous, dramatic, over the top, and that is where all 3 of my stars came from. Actually, majority of the way through the book, I was pretty sure that I was going to give this 4 stars because it wasn't reading a new favorite, something like The Perfect Ruin by Shanora Williams, but I was having a really good time. However, I had to take off an entire star when I got to the ending. I'm not going to spoil the ending or even the type of twist that it was, but just know that as a mental health professional, I didn't love the direction where it went. So there's that. I don't think the mental health stuff was handled super well. I'm not going to give specifics about it because I don't want to do spoilers, but if you can get past that kind of thing, I think you can have a really fun time with this one. It's just kind of my ethical stuff as a professional that prevents me from feeling that way. And my other 3-star book is Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. I was so excited to read this one after loving Every Summer After last summer, but this one just did not hit in the same way. It definitely wasn't bad. I had an okay time reading it, but I didn't feel that deep emotional connection with the characters that I wanted to feel. It was great for summer vibes. It was great for a cutie little romance. And there were honestly some really beautifully written passages in here, especially in regards to grief. So in this book, we're following a romance between this girl and this guy who met 10 years before and had agreed to meet up again, but then one of them stood the other one up. And now years and years and years later, after the girl's mom dies and she has to go back to the inn where her family has been managing for years. Her mom was the main manager of the inn. She has to go back and manage all of that in the wake of her mother's death, and the guy comes back to play a role in that. So they're meeting up after all these years, kind of rehashing the betrayal and then rebuilding a romance. And I did like the premise. I just don't think the characters were nearly as strong as the ones in Every Summer After. I didn't feel their connection or their chemistry, although I did enjoy the vibes. And again, like I said, the writing is really, really pretty. It just didn't, okay? It just didn't. It was just an average little romance girly that entertained me on the 4th of July. I read this on the 4th of July, so yeah, it was fine for that. But if I was just reading this, like, to really dive into a book, I probably would have been more disappointed in it. But because I was like at a 4th of July party in the moment, I was just like, okay, I'm entertained, sure, whatever. Next up, we have my one 3.5 star book, and that is Voyeur by J.F. Gonzalez. And honestly, when I was setting up for my wrap up and I noticed that I rated this 3.5 stars, I really had this gut reaction that I wanted to change it, and I really want to give this book 4 stars. So I don't know where I'm sitting. There was obviously a reason why in the moment right after finishing it, I gave it 3.5. Maybe I'll land on like 3.75, but does it really matter? Does the nitty gritty of that even really matter? No, probably not. Let me just tell you about this book. We are following this family, and the matriarch of the family has gone missing. We are looking for her. We are wondering where she is. And the daughter in the family starts receiving these eerie messages about what happened to her mother, and the kind of penultimate message is the snuff film of her mother's death. So she goes on this journey to try to figure out what happened to her mother, why she was murdered, why her murder was filmed, and try to like stop the distribution of this film. And this one was honestly really well suited to my taste. It was gripping and it was intense and it was dark, but it wasn't over the top or gratuitous in any way. I wouldn't even say this comes close to the content of Survivor by J.F. Gonzalez. So if you've been intimidated by that book, but you've wanted something like it, I would definitely suggest picking up this one. This is kind of like the more thriller version of the extreme horror, which is Survivor. But this one was definitely a lot more digestible. It was so fast-paced. When I tell you it ran at a breakneck pace, I read this in one day. I was shivering in the pool by the end of the book because I was like,
I have to stay out here and read it no matter how cold I am in this pool.
Like, I was so wrinkly, so shivery. I just needed to know what was going to happen. And I was really, really, really hoping that I was not right in my prediction of what was going to happen at the end of the book. I raced through to finish it, only to find out that I did accurately predict what was going to happen from about the 50% mark. And that doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy it, because I really almost want to give this 4 stars despite that prediction. It was just so fast-paced, so well written, so dark, so intense, everything that I look for. The character development was there. I was on their side. I feel like it had something to say. It was really, really, really great other than that prediction. And I feel like it wasn't as great of a thriller as compared to like the traditional thriller authors that I read. Someone like Karen Slaughter obviously like eats up a J.F. Gonzalez thriller easily. But this one was really great. It was good. I feel like 3.5 is a little harsh. But apparently past Hailey was like really, really salty that I was able to predict the twists. Like all of them. Now let's go ahead and move on to my 4-star books, starting out with The Honeys by Ryan LaSala. This is a YA horror book that takes place at a summer camp, and it was so fun. I had a great time with this one. It goes in a really weird, culty, trippy, queer direction, which you're probably hearing all of those words and thinking, yeah, those are buzzwords for Hailey to enjoy a book. And you would be right. That really, really contributed to my enjoyment of The Honeys. We are following a gender fluid main character, which I thought was really, really great. I love to see that representation, especially in the horror genre. And our main character, they recently lost their sister. So they're trying to figure out what exactly happened to her, because they don't believe that her death is as people are kind of saying it is. So we follow them as they travel to their sister's summer camp and get in with her friend group to try to see what could possibly happen to her, what these like culty girls called the Honeys could possibly say or do to her to cause the end of her life. And like I said, it goes completely off the rails in this crazy direction. And usually some books like that, I don't love, like The Brightlands or When No One Is Watching. I didn't like that it went in that like crazy, wild, trippy, unrealistic direction, but something about the setting and the commentary in this book, it just made it, I don't know, like more digestible, more believable for me. I loved the queer rep as well, so that definitely contributed to my enjoyment. And I read along with the audiobook for about half of my reading experience with this, and the sound effects were awesome. There were so many sound effects. It was literally like a movie playing in my head. It was great. And then my other 4-star book that I read in July was The Only One Left by Riley Sager. And I know that this is the Riley Sager book that everyone is like, he is back. Riley Sager's back. It's back to like the Lock Every Door, Home Before Dark era. But as we know, I have really enjoyed the unhinged Riley Sager that we've gotten for the past couple years. Survive the Night and The Last
House on the Lake. What am I saying? The house across?
The House Across the Lake, that's what it is. Those two of his previous releases are by far my favorite of his entire backlist. So it kind of makes sense that I didn't like this one as much. I love when Riley Sager is unhinged. And this one definitely was not as unhinged. In this one, we're following a girl who was accused of murdering her last like in-home health aide patient, and so she gets assigned this new patient out of her probationary period, and it just so happens that her patient was also accused of murder. The patient is like the town's resident, like Lizzie Borden, basically. She was accused of killing her entire family. So this is just like a match made in heaven. And once she goes to this creepy, isolated Gothic mansion where her patient lives, she starts to wonder if her patient maybe did commit these murders after all. And then she's getting all this conflicting evidence. And we're trying to figure out, did she do it? Did our main character do the murder that she's accused of? And what the hell is happening with this like historical Gothic rich people drama murder mystery that happened in the past? It was really, really well written, well paced. The atmosphere was great, and overall I really enjoyed it, but I couldn't give it that 5-star because there were just some like kinks that I couldn't work out. There was a little bit of dragging in the second half where it just felt a little repetitive with the story. I think it was a little bit too long. And then the ending was just really confusing. Like, I got it, but it was a thinker. You know, I had to really be intentional and like go back and reread paragraphs to make sure that I got all those twists right. And I don't like doing that. Like, I don't want to have to work for a thriller. I just want it to be like effortlessly shocking and crazy, like something like Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. And this was not that. Did the twist shock me? Yeah, but they came so quick and in such like fast succession, back to back to back to back, that I like couldn't process it, and it took a lot of work to think about it. And then everything was tied up in a nice little bow. And I don't really like those type of endings. I would rather have something a little bit more mysterious, dark, ambiguous. That's just my personal preference though. Now let's jump into my 4.5-star books, starting out with Fear Park #1, The First Scream. This is a Fear Street book by R.L. Stine, obviously, but it is the first in this little like offshoot sub-series of Fear Street called Fear Park, and I absolutely loved this one. It was so good. One of the best Fear Streets that I've read. It's a little bit historical, and we're following what is happening back in the day with the original Fear family that Fear Street is named after, and their like nefarious deeds that they did when somebody tried to build an amusement park on their land, and how that kind of storyline is showing up again in present day, which is obviously the 90s, in a Fear Street book. It was so much fun. The like cute little high school drama was just so cute. Like I just loved it. I just ate it up. It was so easy to read, so interesting, and honestly the twist did get me. And usually I'm pretty good at predicting Fear Street twists at this point, but these smacked. I have already gotten a little bit into the second one, and I am loving it. I'm literally gonna probably finish it up after I finish filming this video. And my other 4.5-star book that I read in the month of July was Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. Oh my gosh, thank you to everyone who has been shoving this book down my throat and trying to get me to read it for the past like year. I feel like the first person who tried to get me to read this was Amanda from Ginger Snap Reads. Thank you so much, Amanda, for recommending this. I should have taken your recommendation so much longer ago. And recently I picked up this book because Rainy from Rainy Blue Reads reminded me of it. And thank you, girls. You guys, you know my taste so well because I love this book. It is a dark romance about a girl and her future brother-in-law, so her sister's fiance, and they end up getting kidnapped off the street by this deranged killer man, and they're held in this basement trying to survive, fight for their lives, and they really help each other get through the entire experience. So obviously that's pretty complicated since they're in a weird situation down there, like bonding through trauma, but then they're supposed to be like siblings. Oh my god, it's so weird. It is so taboo. It is so morally gray, but I think Jennifer Hartman does those discussions so well. I felt the connection between these characters. I absolutely loved their romance. I was bought in. The twists were twisting. The darkness was darknessing. Like, everything was so good and perfectly to my taste. Like, even the commentary in here was pretty good, which I never expect for a dark romance. But like, thinking about trauma and relationships from a therapeutic and mental health point of view, it was wonderful in this book. The only reason why I didn't give it the full 5 stars was because some of the dialogue in here was pretty cringy and it did take me out of the book a couple times. If it would have been a little bit more seamless, had a little bit better flow and wasn't so cringe, maybe I would have given this book a 5 star, but yeah, that just kind of took me out of it a little bit. Otherwise though, I loved this book. This is one of my new favorite dark romances. It kind of put me into a little bit of a dark romance era where now I'm like,
should I read A Touch of Darkness? Should I read Den of Vipers?
Like, if y'all have anything else dark romance that's like this, still beating, or like There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark, my other favorite dark romance, please leave your recommendations for me down below. I would love some. Finally, we are on to my top 5 books of the month, but before we get into it, I do want to address the cute little shirt that I'm wearing right here. This is my merch. It is for my Pretty Girl book club. I think everyone knows at this point that Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter is my favorite book, literally of all time. It never will be dethroned. As many books as I ever read, she will be the queen forever. So if you want to rep me, my brand, Pretty Girls, Karen Slaughter, I don't know, if you're a pretty girl who reads books and you want this merch, it is always linked down below. I believe it's like a little tab above the description below the video. So yeah, please shop my merch if you want to. No pressure, but it's there if you think it's cute. I think it's cute. If you want to match, I would love to match with you. So now jumping into the 5 stars, which y'all have heard about quite a few of them because luckily I had some amazing wins in my vlogs recently. My reading vlogs that I posted in July were basically flop free except for Hyde. So we're not going to talk about that. We already talked about that. Let's get into the 5 stars. First up, we have Full Tilt by Neil Shusterman. And this one was so fun. We are following this like Stranger Things-esque, and I always describe like a cute little group of children as Stranger Things-esque group of kids who are getting into trouble, and they find their way to this mystical, magical amusement park. In particular, the younger brother of our main character finds his way into this amusement park, and our main character is afraid that he's going to get trapped in there, so he goes in to save him. But in order to save his brother, he has to go through all of these different thrill rides, which force him to confront different traumas, mental health things, psychological concepts. The lessons were learned and the morals were moraling. Like, everything in here was just so well done with the commentary, but it definitely didn't lack on the like story elements. It was so exciting. There was great character development. I totally believed in the connection between these two brothers, and it was just such like a fun, nostalgic read to read, like, I don't know, early 2000s carnival amusement park stuff. It just brought me back to my childhood. The mental health rep was amazing. I loved it. And in that same vlog, I also read Fantastic Land by Mike Bakoven, and this one absolutely shocked me, blew me out of the water. I cannot believe that I just now read this book. This actually might be my favorite book of the month. I'm not gonna lie, I loved Fantastic Land. This reads like a documentary. Obviously, this is a fiction book, but it reads like it happened. Like, it is so effective in its horror and in its realism that I would catch myself reading this and being like,
Oh my god, I can't believe that happened.
and then being like,
Girl, it literally didn't. It's a fictional horror book.
but I digress. This is about a survival scenario of what happens when a bunch of amusement park, basically what's supposed to be Disneyland, employees get abandoned and trapped inside the amusement park during a natural disaster. And they are abandoned there. They literally have to survive for weeks on end. And they all go Lord of the Flies. They're eating each other. They're killing each other. There's all these crazy things that goes on. And it's told in like interviews. So like you'll find each chapter is a different interview with a different person that played a different role in the survival scenario. They all have like a different, wildly different perspective of what happened during this disaster. And it's crazy. Like if you like watching Unsolved Mysteries, Tiger King, something like that on Netflix, that's just this thing that doesn't seem real but somehow does seem real about the human condition. Fantastic Land, one of the most effective horror books that I've read. There was one chapter in here that I got the creepy crawlies, and I literally, my dad was staying over at my apartment, and I literally had to yell for him across my apartment to turn on the light because I physically could not move to turn on the light. I was like, Dad, can you turn on the light? I was terrified. So it's some of the best horror that I've read recently. Highly recommend. If you take one rec from this video, like take this one. I'm not even kidding. I love it so much. The next 5-star that I have is All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. Oh my gosh, this one was such a whirlwind. I already feel like I want to reread it. It was so fast paced, but basically we are following this small town, and the first Black sheriff is our main character, and he is already having the cards stacked against him, obviously, because he's a person of color in a small southern town. That sucks. He's trying to do right by his little citizens of the town, and he's met with this massive challenge when a shooting happens at a school, and he's trying to manage it. He's uncovering this like dark underbelly of the town, and it was insane. The entire thing was insane. It was unpredictable. The connections with the characters were incredible. The development, the commentary, the pacing, it was whirlwind, fast-paced. So good. This had me up until 4 in the morning to finish it. I finished it in a delirious haze and absolutely loved it. But again, I already feel like I want to go back and reread it because I feel like there is so much more to this book that I could get out of on a reread. And I love when books make me feel that way. It's like with Pretty Girls, with Blacktop Wasteland, with The Last Housewife. Immediately I was like, that commentary was so good. I know some stuff went over my head and I want to go back and dive in again. Next up, we have Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. This is obviously a cute little contemporary rom-com romance, and I absolutely adored it. Oh my gosh, we are following Elsie, who is a grad student in like some, I don't know, some smart thing. What do you call it?
Thermodynamics and fucking people. I don't know.
I really don't know. But she is like this PhD girly. And obviously they don't pay PhD candidates shit. So she has this job on the side where she is a fake girlfriend. She will show up to like poor men who don't have girlfriends events with them and be their fake little girlfriend. So she does that for this guy, and then she ends up getting this job opportunity, and she shows up for the interview, and the guy who she just pretended to be his girlfriend's brother is there at the interview, and he's like,
This is not her. This girl's an imposter. She doesn't do anything with thermodynamics. She's not a PhD student. She's my brother's bum ass girlfriend. Like, what's going on?
But obviously they start out on the wrong foot and they build this connection. There's such great mental health rep. I just love the character dynamics and the way that relationships are built in Ali Hazelwood books. She does such a great job of that. There's also ace rep in here, which I really appreciated. Not with our main two characters. There is some very steamy sex scenes with these two, but with another character in the book, and I thought that representation was so great. Obviously, I'm not a part of that community, but I just really enjoyed hearing about it and seeing more diverse LGBTQIA rep. It was such a sweet love story. I was crying by the end of it. It was just so adorable. This didn't give me quite the feeling that The Love Hypothesis did. I feel like I'll be constantly chasing that from Ali Hazelwood, but it was definitely a lot better than Love on the Brain. I didn't love that one. And this one felt like its own unique thing instead of trying to be The Love Hypothesis again. And finally, the last 5-star book that I have to talk to you about that I read in July was How I'll Kill You by Ren DiStefano. And I am so excited that I enjoyed this book because it was my Pretty Girl Book Club pick. So in this book, we are following 3 identical triplets and they set out across the country to murder men. They just have this like sociopathic murderous rage inside of them, and they're gonna murder men, and that's what they do. That's literally how they live their lives. And it is the baby sister. Obviously they're all identical triplets, so they're the same age, but they kind of like treat her as the baby sister. It is her first time to actually execute a kill. She's usually the cleanup person for their murders, but this time she gets to find the mark and execute the kill. And as she's doing that, she's falling in love with her mark. So obviously she's in this big conflict. She doesn't want to kill him as she gets to know him. It is just so interesting to be inside this main character's head. She was so complex, so morally gray, and I feel like represented a lot of different parts of women that we don't like to look at, that we feel shame over. Like feeling feminine rage is so shameful. People shame women all the time for feeling angry. We're just expected to be these nice, polite, quiet people who don't cause a fuss, and I do not operate that way, and the main character of this book definitely does not operate that way, and I felt very seen by her. But then of course also we see her softer, more vulnerable side where she is not just this horrible murderous person. She is a very complex, emotional person, and it was just so great to see that in a different kind of book, because obviously I've seen that in something like The Girl in 6E or even like the newer release Mayfly, but within a romantic context. It was so refreshing and so different. This book was funny, it was interesting, it had the twist, it had the character development. I just loved every part of it, and obviously this was a part of my new release thriller vlog, so if you want to hear me rave about it even more, you can watch that. And if that's still not enough for you, then you can go and watch the live discussion that I'm gonna have with my patrons on my Patreon. I'm not sure if this will be up before or after we have the discussion, but either way, I will link that Patreon post down below if you missed it. And if you're not a part of the Patreon, you can join and watch it really quickly down below. So that is going to be it for my July wrap up, all the 15 books that I read this month. It was all across the board, but I feel like for the most part, we had really great books this month, and I'm so happy to be out of my slump and really enjoying reading again. I already have a ton of books on the docket for August. I'm quite a little chunk into my TBR already. Yay! I just love reading, so yay. That's all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching this video and supporting my channel. Just thank you for being here. I'm feeling like very passionate about making videos lately, so thanks for just clicking on my face and spending some time with me today. If you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And don't forget to check out Xnara Compliments down below if you want to add a little bit to your wellness routine. And of course, don't forget to go to therapy and read a book this week. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!